He survived war, gave everything for his country, including his sight. But on an ordinary day, walking with his loyal K9 service dog, he faced an unthinkable betrayal at home. Police cars screeched to a halt, officers shouting as they closed in. The veteran raised his cane, pleading, "I'm blind." Yet instead of compassion, he was shoved, and his dog barked in defense until a baton struck. Gasps filled the street, cameras rolled, and outrage exploded. Just when it seemed tragedy would claim them both, a thunderous roar echoed. Military vehicles stormed in, sealing the street, and what happened next left the entire nation speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The morning sun glowed faintly on the sidewalks as an elderly veteran tapped his white cane across the pavement. Dark glasses shielded his eyes, but the world was nothing but shadows to him. At his side, a sturdy German shepherd wearing a service harness guided every step with quiet precision. The bond between man and dog wasn't just training. It was survival, trust, and love forged through years of hardship. He had served his country with honor, once strong and steady in uniform, but a battlefield injury had stolen his sight. Even so, he refused to surrender to despair. Each day, he walked into town with his K9, shoulders straight, head held high, reminding everyone who passed that dignity doesn't vanish with disability. For him, routine was freedom, and his dog was his lifeline. Together, they were inseparable. The dog carried him safely through traffic, stopped at crosswalks, and even nudged him toward benches when fatigue slowed his steps. Strangers often paused, moved by the unspoken communication between them. Few knew the battles the veteran fought inside: loneliness, memories of war, the weight of invisibility. Yet, with his loyal companion beside him, he faced each day with quiet courage. It was a quiet afternoon when the veteran and his K9 reached the heart of the city. The dog paused at the curb, waiting for the signal, then guided his master across the street with steady confidence. Cars slowed, pedestrians stepped aside, and for a moment, life seemed peaceful. But before they reached the other side, the wail of sirens shattered the calm. Police cruisers screeched to a stop, boxing in the crosswalk. Confused, the veteran froze, clutching his dog's harness. He heard heavy boots striking the asphalt and voices shouting orders. "Stay where you are. Hands where we can see them." Panic rippled through the air. The man raised his cane, trembling. "I'm blind," he called out, desperation in his tone. But the officers didn't soften. Their presence grew more aggressive, their voices sharper, drowning out reason. The K9 tensed, sensing danger. His ears pinned back, low growls vibrating in his chest as he placed himself between his master and the approaching threat. Bystanders gathered at the sidewalks, their eyes wide, phones lifted to record the scene. Some shouted, pleading with officers to stop. But the wall of blue pressed closer. The veteran's pulse raced. He couldn't see what was coming, but he could feel disaster closing in. The police advanced, their boots striking in unison against the pavement. The K9 let out a sharp bark, his body rigid, hackles raised. To him, these men were a threat to his partner, and he would protect at all costs. But instead of recognizing loyalty, the officers saw aggression. One shouted, "Control that dog." Another reached for his baton, and suddenly the line between safety and brutality blurred beyond recognition. The veteran stumbled backward, confusion overwhelming him. He clung to his dog's harness, shouting, "He's a service animal. He's only protecting me." But his pleas were drowned in the chaos. Hands grabbed his arms, twisting them behind his back with unnecessary force. He cried out in pain, his cane falling uselessly to the ground. The German shepherd lunged defensively, barking, teeth bared, not to attack, but to shield the man he served. Panic erupted in the crowd. "Stop! He's blind!" someone yelled. Phones filmed from every angle, capturing the raw injustice unfolding. The dog growled louder as an officer swung his arm, narrowly missing him. Tension spiked, a heartbeat away from disaster. The veteran's face twisted with anguish. "Please, don't hurt him," he begged. But his voice trembled in the storm of commands, shouts, and barking. Every second pushed the fragile balance closer to a breaking point. The German shepherd barked again, his body coiled like a spring, eyes locked on the officers restraining his master. But before he could move, a baton swung down, striking his side. The yelp that followed pierced the air like a knife, silencing even the loudest voices in the crowd. The veteran collapsed to his knees, reaching blindly for his fallen companion. "No!" he screamed, the word echoing against the city walls like a cry for mercy. The dog lay whimpering, struggling to rise, but too weak. The veteran's trembling hands searched until they found his partner's fur, his fingers clutching tightly. His voice broke as he shouted, "He's my eyes. He's all I have." Yet the officers pressed on, their commands louder, their grips tighter, ignoring the anguish spilling into the street. Each second felt like an eternity, the cruelty magnified by the disbelief on every witness's face. From the sidewalks, outrage boiled over. People shouted, some rushing forward only to be blocked by officers with outstretched arms. Cameras captured every angle, broadcasting the injustice in real time. Mothers covered their children's eyes, unable to explain why a man who gave his sight for his country was being treated like a criminal. The air shook with tension, fear, and fury. And then, just as the crowd's anger reached its breaking point, a deep, thunderous rumble rose from beyond the street, growing louder, heavier, unstoppable. Something far bigger was coming. Engines thundered like an approaching storm, rattling the storefront windows. The crowd turned, their gasps rising as a line of armored vehicles rolled into view. Soldiers in uniform marched with precision, their boots pounding the asphalt in unison. The police froze, their authority crumbling as the convoy sealed off both ends of the street. The veteran clutched his wounded K9, tears streaking his face, while the city braced for what came next. A commanding officer stepped forward, his voice carrying over the chaos. "Stand down," he barked, his tone sharp, unquestionable. The soldiers fanned out, rifles lowered but steady, forming a wall between the police and the helpless man on the ground. The crowd erupted in cheers and disbelief. For the first time, hope surged through the tense air. Justice had arrived wearing military green. The officers exchanged frantic glances, their earlier bravado replaced with unease. Some lowered their batons, others slowly stepped back. The veteran raised his face toward the commotion, confusion etched across his features. "Who's there?" he asked weakly. A soldier knelt beside him, gently resting a hand on his shoulder. "You're safe now, sir," he said firmly. "We've got you. No one will harm you. Or your dog, again." The veteran clung to his K9, his trembling hands pressed against the dog's chest, feeling each shallow breath. Medics rushed in, lifting the wounded animal carefully onto a stretcher. The soldier at his side leaned closer. "He'll be treated immediately, sir. He's a fighter." The veteran's lips quivered, relief and sorrow colliding as he whispered, "Don't let him die. He's my only eyes." The crowd around them fell silent, hearts breaking at the sight. Meanwhile, military officers confronted the police. Their voices cut through the air with authority. "You attacked a decorated veteran and his service animal," the commander declared, his tone like steel. "There will be consequences." The officers who had once stood tall now stared at the ground, stripped of their power, exposed in front of the people they had sworn to protect. The crowd erupted in chants, their outrage turning into a demand for justice. Hours later, the veteran sat in a hospital room with his faithful K9 resting beside him, bandaged but alive. Soldiers stood guard at the door, while messages of support poured in from across the city. Though his heart still carried the scars of betrayal, he knew one thing: loyalty had triumphed. In a world filled with injustice, his dog's devotion and the voices of strangers had given him hope again.